Imagine waking up to the sound of jets screaming through the sky. Not over some foreign battlefield, but over Mexico's heartland. Below, hidden deep in the jungle, heavily armed cartel soldiers patrol a compound that looks more like a fortress than a drug lab. For decades, they operated with impunity. But now, something has changed. Because for the first time in history, the United States has officially declared that cartels are not just criminals, but terrorists. That single decision flipped the entire war on drugs upside down. But how did we get here? What's happening right now behind the scenes? And how far could this conflict go? Let's start at the beginning. On January 20th, 2025, the U.S. government signed an executive order that stunned the world. Cartels like Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation weren't just seen as drug traffickers anymore. They were classified the same way as ISIS or Al-Qaeda, designated terrorist organizations. That meant new powers, new rules, and new weapons could now be deployed against them. And while that made headlines across the globe, the real story was only just beginning. Because labeling someone a terrorist is more than words. It opens doors that can't easily be shut. Once the designation was official, laws that were once aimed at foreign extremists were suddenly being used on cartel suspects. Entire bank accounts were frozen overnight. Family members who had nothing to do with trafficking were dragged into investigations. One case in particular stood out. Maria Navarro Sanchez, a woman from Sinaloa, was accused of laundering millions through real estate. Overnight, she wasn't just a suspect in a financial crime. She was facing charges that carried the same weight as aiding terrorists. It sent a shockwave through Mexico. If the U.S. could treat cartels like terrorists, it meant anyone connected to them in the slightest way could be swept up too. And that was just the beginning. While lawyers battled in courtrooms, the Pentagon was quietly preparing something far more aggressive. For years, intelligence agencies had tracked cartel leaders with satellites and drones, but now the rules had changed. Instead of gathering evidence for police raids, the military could plan missions as if it were fighting an insurgency. The CIA and the Department of Defense began working side by side, creating a brand new playbook, and the cartels had no idea what was about to hit them. It started with surveillance. High above Mexico, satellites mapped out smuggling routes. Spy drones the size of cars circled cartel compounds day and night. Even cell phone signals were intercepted, triangulated in real time, exposing safe houses once thought to be invisible. The U.S. wasn't just watching anymore. They were preparing, and every intercepted call, every suspicious money transfer was added to a growing database that made cartels feel like ghosts were following them everywhere. But then came the real shock, when those invisible eyes were paired with fighter jets. The F-22 Raptor, one of the most advanced stealth fighters in the world, had never been part of the drug war. Until now. Designed to outmaneuver missiles and dominate enemy skies, the Raptor suddenly had a new mission: hunting cartel convoys. With precision targeting systems and surgical strike capabilities, these jets weren't here to bomb cities. They were here for one thing: to deliver fast, silent hits that could take down high-value targets in seconds. And once Raptors entered Mexican skies, cartels realized the rules of the game had changed forever. But jets were only one part of the story. The real turning point came on a single night when Mexico did something it had never done before. It handed over nearly 30 cartel leaders at once. In the dead of night, military convoys surrounded prisons. Helicopters lifted off with some of the most wanted men in the world on board. By sunrise, they were in U.S. custody, facing trials that would keep them locked up for life. It was a historic move. The U.S. rewarded Mexico by lifting trade tariffs, a diplomatic win that masked just how explosive the situation had become. Because inside Mexico, that decision was seen not as cooperation, but as betrayal. The response was immediate. Cartels set up flaming blockades on highways, torched vehicles, and attacked government convoys. Entire cities were paralyzed overnight. And while Mexico tried to contain the chaos, American cities quietly braced themselves too. The question wasn't if there would be retaliation on U.S. soil. The question was when. But as chaos spread, something unexpected started happening inside the cartels themselves. With dozens of bosses extradited or killed, leadership inside the cartels collapsed. And into that vacuum stepped a new generation. Younger, hungrier, and far more brutal. These weren't the old-school traffickers who preferred to operate in shadows. They were unpredictable, violent, and eager to prove themselves. Some carried military-grade weapons. Others adopted tactics straight from insurgent groups. In other words, by decapitating the cartels,